Hello, my wonderful Bloomington artists. How are you? I hope you're doing well. I hope you're excited for another Meet the Masters project. Today we're learning about Pablo Picasso. One of the reasons that I really like Picasso is because I feel like he really appreciated kids. He really appreciated children. One thing specifically he said, all children are born artists. The problem is to remain an artist as you grow up. I love seeing the artwork that you come up with, and Picasso knew that too. He knew the creativity that children have, and so I hope you feel that. I hope you feel that creativity and try to, like he said, try to keep that for the rest of your life. May sound a little weird now, but trust me, it's something that you want for the rest of your life. To keep that ability to create, to make things, to come up with new ideas and new connections. Picasso grew up in a family of artists. His dad was an artist, and so he started drawing really young. He started drawing and painting. He got into art school when he was really young. He loved to paint. And let's look at this first painting. This is called The First Communion, and it's a very classical style. It's kind of what he was trained in. He was really, really talented, and he developed those skills from a very young age, and so he was an excellent painter. But what's interesting about Picasso is that he was known, he's really known for is all of these different styles, all of these different ways of making art. That's what he's famous for. So while he was very, very talented at doing the specific classical style that he was trained in at school, he created all sorts of different ways of expressing himself, of making art. So look at this next one. It's called Boy in a Sailor Suit. And he did this a little later. He was 57 when he did this. But I think you can see right away the contrast, right? The change from where he was when he was younger. He knew how to do this beautiful, accurate painting. And then here we have this portrait of somebody, and it's completely different. He actually said, it took me 4 years to paint like Raphael. Raphael was a great master, from the Renaissance period. It took me 4 years to paint like Raphael, but a lifetime to paint like a child. And I love that. I love how he said that. Even though he was so good, Picasso was so good, it took him years of training to where he was a master as well. He could paint anything he wanted to. But what he wanted to do was get back to that creativity, get back to what you as children have. And that I love, because I feel the same way. I feel that desire to get to the creativity that you have. So let's keep looking at some new pictures. We've got lots of pictures to show you today. The next one that we're going to look at is from what we call his blue period. So I said he's famous for lots of different styles. He would go through all these different times in his life. For a few years, he only painted primarily in blues. In these blue and green, these cool colors. And lots of different reasons, but mainly he was kind of sad. His friend had died, and he was having a hard time. He had dropped out of school, and he was painting, and he was starving. He was hungry. He wasn't selling any work yet, hardly. And so for a long time, he was painting in blues. He goes through all these different periods, right? He goes all through these different styles of painting. And one that he's probably most famous for is called Cubism. And this is a portrait, actually. And you might have to look closely at it. Tell me what you see here. Tell your teachers, what do you see is going on in this picture? It might be kind of hard to tell. As I said, it's called Cubism. A little square, like a cube. meaning everything that he sees is like broken up into cubes. It's broken up into like simplified forms, and it was a new way for him to think about how things looked. Now, one of the primary purposes of painting had always been, if you think of, a long time ago, was to create pictures that represented what was going on, right? They didn't have cameras until relatively recently. And so this kind of happened during Picasso's life, where the camera came in and people said, oh, wow, we don't really need to take or paint pictures of, this person and this person and this person in order to remember them, or this scene. We can take a picture of it. And so what this meant basically for Picasso and for a lot of artists, this meant that their paintings no longer had to represent anything specific, and it really freed them up to make it whatever they wanted. And so Picasso really took advantage of this and started creating all these different things. Let's look at this next portrait. This is a friend of his, and again, he is intentionally making things look different than they really are, because he no longer feels this obligation to create this accurate portrait. And so do you think people liked this when they saw it? If you had a portrait done of yourself and you came back looking like this, kind of all mixed up, you think you would like it? Yeah, I don't know. Probably not. Maybe. Another style that he actually created, you've probably done them, maybe you didn't even know it. I know I've seen lots of you do it, called a collage, where you put different things together, whether it's paper or fabric. Here he did it, and he was trying to create a picture of a guitar. And, before, you would have different options. You might paint a picture of exactly what a guitar looked like. Yet here he is putting together pieces of newspaper and paint and fabric, and he brings in some crayons, and he's got ink. And this worked for him. He wanted to show something different. And then here's another example of where he created a sculpture of a guitar. And he's using different pieces of metal. He did some other ones that were made out of cardboard. He used whatever he wanted. He was so good at that. He didn't feel held down by any specific material or style. He could just create however it worked for him. Here's another example where he's creating sculpture, and he went through a whole period where he would use what we call found objects. And look closely here, and you'll see different things that you might have around your house. Maybe a colander that you use to drain pasta, or different pieces of metal. He used toys. He used toy cars in some of his sculptures. And he just used whatever he wanted. Another was one of my favorite pieces of his. It's called the Footballer. And this is a giant metal sculpture that had different pieces of sheet metal, and they were welded, and they were on a base. And it may seem, fairly normal now, but at the time, it was not common to weld, to join pieces of metal in sculpture. Usually you cast sculpture, and you would pour molten metal, and you would create this shape of whatever you wanted. Well, he came along and he said, I'm going to weld different pieces together. And he just started doing things like that. And so I love that about him. I hope you enjoy looking at different pieces like this. And I hope you feel that same level of creativity when you go home and you want to make things, that you do it. You're not afraid of, does it look like this? Does it look like that? Do whatever you want. I'll leave you with one more. And this is one he did pretty late in his life, because he worked all through his life. He lived until he was 91, pretty old, and he painted and created his whole life. And he was one of the most, prolific. He created lots and lots of things, lots of artwork for everyone to enjoy. And so I hope you feel that you are all great artists. Like Picasso said, you were born artists. And so try to keep that through your life. Try to keep that creativity, that ability to come up with new ideas and create things, and don't be afraid of trying new things. So I hope you have enjoyed learning a little bit about Picasso, and you enjoy your projects that you're going to do together. We'll see you next time. Bye.